Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Jason Mackey's First 10, a short version podcast talking all things Pittsburgh sports. And today is Tuesday, August 20th. We're coming off a Pirates loss in Texas to the Texas Rangers, 4-3. Going to talk a little bit about that, have a couple other Pirates topics, as well as some Steelers stuff I want to get into involving a column that one of our columnists, Paul Zeiss, wrote about the wide receivers. Going to start it off, though, with a little talk about Andrew McCutchen, actually, something I wanted to get to yesterday that I didn't. Ben Cherington addressed this on his radio show, and I thought it was interesting. It's the first I think I've heard the GM speak on this, and honestly is a storyline that is probably worth talking about at this point. McCutchen is sidelined, of course, with an injury on the 10-day IL. Doesn't seem too terribly serious. Left knee, quad, somewhere in that area. And it's something that Kutch has been dealing with. I say both because it's kind of been grabbing at his quad. It's also been dealing with the knee, but in that region. And basically, it leads me to believe, what is the next step for Andrew McCutchen? I don't think his season is finished, but does he have a future in Pittsburgh? That's going to be a question that the Pirates are going to have to answer here over the balance of the regular season, the offseason. This is what I know about it. Talking to Andrew, he doesn't want to be done. He wants to keep playing. I believe earlier this season, he said he wanted to play 2 more years, at least. This is the first of those 2. And if you look at what McCutchen has done, he's been a pretty productive hitter. Not exactly sure where his OPS sits at the moment, but 720, 730 in that range. He's been one of their better offensive players. And if you're the Pirates, what do you do with that? For me, the decision is very easy. You bring him back. You don't tell Kutch no. Bob Nutting is on record saying that Andrew McCutchen will remain a Pirate for as long as he wants to be, and I don't see how you can do anything else. Now, that being said, my understanding of their stance is they wouldn't mind having that position be open a little bit, have somebody who can maybe play another spot, have some roster flexibility as opposed to a 37-year-old who really doesn't play much outfield and is dealing with the physical ailments that Andrew McCutchen is dealing with. But again, how do you tell Kutch no? How do you turn him away? It's a very bad look, in my opinion, if the Pirates send him on his way, if he still wants to play and Kutch winds up playing in another jersey. Like, he should finish his career here. The offense has obviously lacked, and Andrew McCutchen fits the mold of what they're trying to do. He's been a productive player. He's been a lot more productive than many of the young guys they've trotted out there. And I just don't necessarily see how you can't bring him back. And I thought what Ben Cherington said on his show was a little bit telling. I'm going to read that quote to you. "We're just focused on this year," Cherington said. "Let's get him healthy, get him back in the lineup. When we get past this season, we can turn our agenda to that." One part of my brain reads that quote and says it would be very easy for Cherington to say Andrew McCutchen's going to remain a Pirate. It's not complicated. As long as he wants to come back, we have a place for him. And notice Ben did not say that. I do understand more from Cherington's perspective about, well, it's August, second week of August, whatever it was. I don't have to give an answer now. I don't have to say anything definitive. Who knows what happens between now and the end of the year? Maybe out of deference to McCutchen, like, you want to have a conversation with him. I'm not sure. And I'm not saying I have any definitive, like, this is what they're going to do, this is what they're not going to do. I can say what I would do, what I think makes sense, but it's something that is going to be talked about plenty from now through the end of the regular season. All right, going to move on to another topic, and that is KeBryan Hayes. I received some feedback, saw some things on Twitter about how fans sort of react to his back injury, the column that I wrote about that, where you can read between the lines, read KeBryan's quote about what he had been dealing with. Certainly sounds like a disc issue. He brought up the disc and saying some of the jelly stuff was coming out. And that's the definition of a herniated disc. And I give KeBryan a lot of credit for playing through it. At the same time, it's not great. The production suffered. You can make the argument that he's been the worst hitter, the worst regular hitter in Major League Baseball this season. And he went on the 10-day IL before Monday's game in Texas. Kind of a predictable move there. Each of the past 3 seasons, he's had back issues, and it's been similar stuff. He's hit just .233 with 4 homers, 25 RBIs, and a .573 OPS. It's his second stint on the injured list this season. He was also on there May 11th. you have to get KeBryan Hayes healthy. That is issue number one. This back thing has gone on for far too long. They need to figure out what's going on with the disc there. And, as much as you might want to go after it this year, you have to figure out how to get him right long term. They are under contract with him until the end of the decade. So you want him to get healthy. You want him to produce the way he did over the final 2 months of last season. How you get there, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I don't know any magical stuff there. In the meantime, I sort of have to look at this and say, what's going to happen? How are the dominoes going to stack out? Jared Triolo had a home run tonight or Monday night. We'll talk about that a little bit. But Triolo was hitting just 118 in 9 August games before Monday with 1 extra base hit, a home run. It's going to be interesting when Nick Gonzalez comes back too. I think he's probably going to get a lineup spot, and I'd expect to see him at second base. Who goes to third? Could be Triolo, could be Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is going to be in there somewhere, and he's capable of playing third base. I think you probably give Triolo a little bit of a run. He had a good finish to last year. Maybe he can rediscover some of that, but again, going to be an interesting scenario to monitor. Want to get to more Pirates topics on the other side of our break. Also, a couple Steelers things I want to throw your way, but first, a message from the Bradenton Area Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Embrace the laid-back charm of island life while sinking your toes in the sand and discovering real, authentic Florida in the Bradenton area. Unspoiled beauty and pristine beaches, a vibrant waterfront downtown energized by local arts and culture, fresh Floridian cuisine with a flourish of rich history, and friendly locals ready to welcome you to this preserved paradise on Florida's Gulf Coast. Plan your visit today at BradentonGulfIslands.com.
So the Pirates lost 4-3 to the Texas Rangers in Texas. It's their second consecutive loss. They had just 1 hit over the final 4 innings. Luis Ortiz started, went 6 innings, gave up 4 earned runs on 5 hits, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts, and 2 home runs. It wasn't a terrible start from Ortiz, but 2 very bad pitches to Corey Seager doomed him. Just 2 missed spots, total meatballs, would want him back. All that fun stuff. But I think it just shows the fine line between a good outing and an outing that's not going to work. The Pirates' bats were largely quiet except for that 3-run homer from Jared Triolo that I talked about. An interesting at bat where he wasn't able to get anything on the knuckle curve that Dane Dunning was throwing and suddenly made an adjustment and hit it out. And a good bat for Triolo. I think there is a good hitter in there. We'll see whether he's able to bring it out. Billy McKinney, added to the roster before the game, had 2 hits. Dennis Santana looked really good. Has actually been a pretty significant bullpen add as they have needed help there, and I liked what he did tonight. The other thing, Joey Bart, 2 hits, continues to function well in that cleanup spot. But again, it's getting late early for the Pirates. They have to win this series in Texas. They have to win a series against Cincinnati. I mean, just the margin of error is so thin for them. You'd really like to see them get it together. All right, going to switch gears here for about 2 minutes to end this thing. I wanted to talk about Paul Zeiss's column. The Steelers' biggest issue on offense is still at wide receiver. If you haven't read it, check it out. It's very good. And basically talking about the offensive struggles, which we've all discussed. There's been a lot of talk, Russell Wilson versus Justin Fields. The first-team offense hasn't scored this, that, and the other. I get it. Paul also addresses the Brandon Aiyuk situation and basically that they're incomplete at wide receiver. And I don't disagree with Paul. I go back to a lot of what Omar Khan has done this offseason, where you're making a lot of calls, you're inquiring about a lot of top shelf wide receivers, whether they're available via trade, maybe free agency, whatever, to try to address that spot. To me, that is the Steelers admitting a weakness, something they need, and they haven't done that. Are they deficient? Very possibly. That's the case that Paul outlined, saying they're worse than they were when Deontay Johnson was on this team. There's been some decent things from Van Jefferson, Scotty Miller, Quez Watkins, as long as he's not returning punts. Roman Wilson has been hurt and has largely been a non-factor in preseason, but you could certainly feel better about that. I do think there's a bit of an incomplete grade on there. They haven't targeted the tight ends all that much. In past Arthur Smith offenses, the tight end has basically functioned as a second wide receiver. Now, the way the offense has functioned so far, it hasn't been good enough, not taking enough attention away from George Pickens, and that's certainly a trouble spot. But we like to outline things to pay attention to, what to look for in the preseason game Saturday against Detroit would obviously be the wide receivers pushing the ball downfield a little bit more. Russell Wilson checked down a whole lot against the Bills. I do worry some about the wide receivers, though, and I think that's an important part of the offense that the Steelers have not quite addressed. The performances just not have been varsity, to use a Mike Tomlin word. And if we're talking about the offense sputtering this, that, and the other, it hasn't been just Wilson, just Fields. The wide receivers are a big part of that as well. Thank you for watching. We will be back here same time, same place tomorrow. Make sure you like and subscribe. You can get this video and a lot of other content from our Post-Gazette writers and columnists. And talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.